Hi there everyone! Welcome to Scott Nicholson 101, which is a little introduction of who I am. I'm going to briefly talk about my academic history, my gaming history, and then why I'm excited to come up as a new professor of games and the director of the Game Design and Development program there at Wilfrid Laurier University in Brantford, Ontario. So, my academic background, I started with a degree in math and computer science, and my first career was working as the computer guy at the University of Oklahoma. I then went on and got my library degree and became an academic librarian, and then moved on for my PhD in information science, after which I went on to Citibank as a statistician, and I found corporate America wasn't really a match for me. So I joined the faculty at Syracuse University in 2001. While there, I first focused on data mining in libraries and created a term called bibliomining, looked at that. But I then moved into gaming in 2007 and started to look at gaming in libraries and created the Library Game Lab of Syracuse, where I studied how libraries were using games as a way of bringing people in. But I noticed a lot of focus on video games and teens, and I knew there was much more to gaming than that. So I wrote a book about that called Everyone Plays at the Library. And this book focused on tabletop games and video games and all sorts of games, but it also focused on all sorts of people. It recognized that there were many sorts of gamers out there that weren't just teens, but that everyone liked to play games. And just like the library tries to help all patrons of all different ages, there are games for people of all different ages, and the library can use those. And during that time, I actually created an online course about gaming in libraries in 2009. There's a 30-video series which explores gaming in libraries, and I was teaching it as a 4-credit course online to Syracuse University students, but I was putting each video out so everyone could see it. And this built up a community of gamers and librarians and students at this time when gaming in libraries was just starting. It was a MOOC, if you heard of that term, well before the concept of MOOCs existed. So then I went off for a year to MIT, worked with the Gambit Game Lab as a visiting professor, and then during that time I really explored and fell in love with the concepts of play and got very concerned with what was happening with gamification, which is the idea of using game elements to engage people. There was a real focus in gamification on using points and badges and rewards to entice people to do stuff. And I knew as a lifetime gamer that it wasn't about points, but it was about story and narrative and exploration and becoming a hero. And so I created something called meaningful gamification, which is about using concepts from gamification and concepts from games that aren't rewards and points to engage people with stuff in the real world. And I've continued to talk and write about that. That brings me up to where I am today. I'm running a lab called Because Play Matters, which studies informal learning spaces like museums and libraries and looking how we use games for informal learning. I've started to do some research on escape rooms and exploring how they can be used actually in museum spaces. I've done games such as live action games in libraries where I had kindergartners become dinosaurs and they went out and had adventures together. I've done game jams in museums. For example, I ran a game jam for teenagers in a local science museum where they made games in the museum while it was open that went along with certain exhibits. I've continued to do family-based game jams where we bring groups of people together to make games. So I'm really focused on helping people make games. I've run a group called the Game Designers Guild, which is a community group where we make games for good for the community. So it brings together a lot of different people to engage with the creation of games. So that's where I am academically. Now, as a gamer, I've been a lifelong gamer. I grew up with an Atari 2600. I grew up with a TRS-80 Color Computer Model 1. I grew up with the red cover and blue cover Dungeons and Dragons books. And I grew up with lots of board games. And board games are actually one of my main focus in gaming. But through college, I did a lot of live-action role-playing, and in fact, my first published game, I'm one of the co-authors on Call of Cthulhu Live, first edition, if you take a look at that book. And so I've always been interested in many different sorts of gaming experiences because I know it's about creating a good experience for the people you want to play with, and that's not always about sitting down and looking at a screen. I talk about face-to-screen games, face-to-face games, and face-to-place games, and they're all important. In the board game world, the thing that I'm best known for is my video series, Board Games with Scott. So Board Games with Scott was the first web-based video series that was out there on YouTube. I started it in 2005, and it ran from 2005 to 2010. So it was the first one of these sorts of series that you see like with Tabletop today. In each video, I took a board game and taught you how to play it. So you can still find all of the back videos of these at BoardGamesWithScott.com. That took me to meeting people from around the world, meeting publishers, and actually ended up on CBS being interviewed by Mo Rocca, where I got to tell the world how much I didn't like Monopoly. It also led me to exploring design, and I've got 2 board games that I've published and are out there and available. The first one is called Tulip Mania 1637. It's now out of print. It came out in 2009, and it's a game about a bubble stock market. It had players playing the bad guys, manipulating a market and trying to get out before it crashed. And then my most recent game is Going, Going, Gone. This is an auction game, and in each round of the game, players are bidding in 10 seconds. They're bidding on 5 different things by throwing cubes into cups. And I used a lot of play theory in designing this game, because an important difference between play and games is in play, you let the players set some of the rules. So when you're playing, you're creating the rules. So in Going, Going, Gone, in each round of play, one player actually counts from 10 to 1 at the pace of their choosing, which completely changes the way the game feels. I still continue to play digital games and engage with those as well, and so I've explore and use all these different sorts of game types. And why I'm excited to come to Wilfrid Laurier University. There are 2 things about this program that I really like. And the first one is that it doesn't have a total focus on video games. Many game design programs out there are focused on video games. But I recognize that there are times when you want to use a face-to-face game or a face-to-place game. Some game in the real world is more important than something on the screen for creating a certain game experience. So students in this program, they'll learn how to do digital games. We'll be doing some of that, not at a hardcore programming level. We're not preparing people to go out and work in the AAA console industry, but instead we're going to focus on mobile games and lightweight games and indie games and that sort of space of digital game creation. But we're also going to be focusing on tabletop games, and we're going to be looking at live action games. And so students that come out, they're going to become designers so that they have the ability to create game experiences on all these different gaming platforms. And the second thing I'm really excited about is that there's an overlay, not only at this program, at Wilfrid Laurier University in Brantford, they're focused on changing the world, on inspiring lives. That's actually their tagline. And I really like that. For me, that's really important. That's something I've been trying to do, is to help people out there who know games to understand that what they've learned from playing games over these years is they've learned how gaming motivates people. And they can take those concepts and bring it into using games to change the world. So throughout all of the courses, students are going to be continually looking at how do they use games to make a difference in education, in corporate training, in healthcare, in social good. And so we're going to be using games to do this. Students will all be required to be involved in one of our big scale projects, where we're going to be partnering with Brantford, with the community, with schools, to get people exploring games, creating games, and understanding how games can actually make a difference. And in their senior year, they're going to have a senior project where they have to make one of these games. It's going to make the world a better place. And that's what I'm most excited about. I think about Harry Potter with Dumbledore's army and this group of people that all work together to try and make things a better place. And that's what I want to do here. I want to help bring together an army of gamers to help change the world. So that's why I'm excited. That's who I am. If you want to learn more about me, you can visit scottnicholson.com. You'll find links there to my various social media channels, to my publications, my Because Play Matters site. You can find it all there. So I'm looking forward to see what the future holds, and looking forward to working with some of you in that future. Take care, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.